this time what we're going to go into is some magic review, I guess you could say, and maybe some insights into new strategies and such things. Anyways, I wanted to go over the deck, Precon deck actually. It's came out not too long ago, but it's also not fairly recent. Anyways, it is Tegwyll, the Duke of Splendor. Now, those who are familiar with the Precon deck, kudos to you. I have made a few changes to attempt to improve the deck, or not necessarily improve, I guess you could say, but just to change things up a little bit. Some cards that I found that my brother and I were able to discover that have enhanced its qualities in some certain aspects and maybe declined it. I'm just trying to be neutral here. But anyways, those who are not familiar with the deck, let me go over some of its highlights. So Tegwyll, the Duke of Splendor, this commander is a flying and death touch commander, black and blue. He makes others black and blue. Anyways, weird laugh. He gets other fairies +1/+1, and he also, when a fairy dies, I lose a life and I draw a card. This is nice because this deck is focused on, as you can tell, fairies, which can be annoying as is because, hey, they're all freaking flying. So to go over the basis of things, I'm just kind of taking out these lands here. Some artifacts, that just give me mana, and, I forgot what the word is, but they generate more mana. You need some of those cards. And I just kind of want to go over some of the generic fairies and things like that you'll see in this deck, some of the spells that you want to be aware of, and things like that. For example, Tegwyll, in these Precon decks, you have the choice between basically two commanders, right? You have Tegwyll, the main commander, that they give you this fat cardboard. It's pretty durable. And then they also give you a secondary choice commander. And give me a second. I guess I should have separated these as fast as I could, but I found her, so no worries. Oh, they also give you a normal one. I don't know if you knew that, but anyways. So the other lady that we were talking about that is the potential commander is Alela, the Cunning Conqueror. So based on the lore, if I'm correct, so Tegwyll wants to basically not betray necessarily, but I think it is betray. And he uses Alela as a help to get his plans done. So they're kind of a partnership in this. And that's all I'm going to go into, in fear that I might mess up some of the storyline, and I don't want to do that. Oh, crap. I just separated the wrong piles together. No. Anyways, I'm almost done here, guys. Do not worry. Anyways, her abilities. Boom. Done. Cool beans. Her abilities include, flying, of course, because she's a fairy, but whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, create a 1/1 black fairy rogue with flying, of course, and whenever one or more fairies you control deal combat damage to a player, you goad target creature that player controls. Now, from that ability, goad, which forces the other players' monsters or such to attack other players, or just has to attack, it makes more sense that this deck is in a player format of, 3 or more. However, I play this deck a lot with my brother only, and I'm still able to cream that man sometimes. Anyways, so that is the choice you have. For example, in my stance, I would rather use Tegwyll because I am only playing against one other player, because her ability is focused on goading. But if I was in a more player format, I'd probably want to go with Alela, because that would make it so everyone has to attack everyone else except for me. So there's that. And other highlights of this include other black and blue creatures like this. These creature cards enhance your spells, get your spells back, making them cost less, and also having abilities where, the number of fairies, this spell costs less. And then there's also spells such as this one called the Perplexing Test. This one right here, where you can able to choose one, and you can return all creature tokens or return all non-creature tokens, depending on your stance in the game. Because if you have a lot of tokens, you could just force everyone else's tokens to go away. That's awesome. Or non-creature tokens, which is awesome. Other things such as the Theoretical Duplication, which you're able to copy a non-creature token as it enters the battlefield, which is another good spell. We have creatures such as the Malleable Imposter, which is also another copy of a creature. So this is a very, I guess you could say illusionary kind of deck where you're targeting the other opponent's deck and putting it against them, as well as making things flying, right? Other such highlights in here, and I'm going to also separate the cards that I have included in my own time. There's not very many differences, but there's some cards that enhance, I feel, this deck. Anyways, just trying to separate those real quick. I think there's only about 4 to 5. Yes. Okay, here we go. We also have Iona, Queen of the Fae, so from the storyline as well, and she's able to exile the top cards of the opponent's library based on the mana that you pay, the number of cards, and then you also create a fairy tokens based on the number of cards that your opponent discards. You also have adventure type fairies that return target lands to their hands. You have Obra, the Dreaming Duelist. I probably should show you the Ona, the Queen of the Fae, actually, real quickies. There she is. She's pretty epic. Still in line with the other fairies like Tegwyll and Elela. Mind if I'm pronouncing them wrong, but we also have Obra, the Dreaming Duelist, flash and flying, and whenever another fairy enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. That's pretty good, flash and flying. As you can tell, this deck is a lot focused on the flash, or like the entrance of cards and spells on the opponent's turn. I just want to see if that worked. I still have a glare. Interessante. Anyways, we also have sorceries and such as distant melody. We have a lot of drawing cards, spells like that. This one's pretty good. Choose a creature type, draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. Tokens, hey, you have 12 fairies on the field. That's pretty gosh darn good. Create a blue 1/1 fairy token with creature and draw a card. So this one is a creature that you can continually make more fairies. Now, these fairy cards are all great and all. I just said that, great and all, like a lot of times anyways. But it gets better. So, let's go on to some other things. We also have this creature card that has a persist. You return creatures to the battlefield that had no 1/1 counters on it, and then you put a 1/1 counter on it. We have another spell like that. That's actually really good. We also have the Illusionist's Gambit. Whoa, cast a spell only during the declared blocker's step on an opponent's turn, and you remove all attacking creatures from the combat and untap them. Then there's an additional combat phase, and then they all attack another player. Ooh, some good ones. I think I will show you right now are the Shadow Puppeteers. This is a great card. This one is kind of nice depending on your deck because it creates creatures that are not fairies, and that could also help you, especially if the person or you have cards that target only fairies. So this one's really nice because it enters, and then 2 1/1 black fairy rogue creature tokens with flying, and then whenever you control a creature with flying attacks, you may have it become a red dragon with base power and toughness 4/4 in addition to the other colors and types it until the end of turn. Oh, I guess other colors and types still remains. Sorry, but I think the great thing with this one is that creature you control, any creature, can become a 4/4. So depending on the number of fairy tokens you have, you could also make them all dragons. Let's see here. We have some other adventure fairies that also get rid of spells, counter spells, and things like that. We have the Sower of Temptation, another control another target creature of the opponent's team kind of spell. We have the Fairy Noble Talion's Messenger, which whenever you attack with 1 or more fairies, you draw a card, and then you put a 1/1 counter if you discard a card this way. So that guy's pretty nice. I don't know where this glare is coming from, to be honest, guys. I think maybe it's the light, but I don't know. Let's see here. Other creature cards are really good. Nimrus, Una's Trickster. This one's really good. So Fashion Flying, she's kind of a tank, 1/6, doesn't do much damage, but once the spell on the opponent's team is played, you look at the top cards of your library, and you put one of those cards into your hand and the other into the graveyard. So that can be nice. There's a lot of first spell on the opponent's turn. Ooh, to tell a story, I was able to use the combination of these cards, which is honestly freaking lit, to enact full-out war on my opponent. So, upon using Kindred Dominance, this spell, you get to choose a creature type and destroy all creatures of the chosen type. Then, you're able to bring all creatures under your control that were put into the graveyard this turn. So, beginning of combat, end of combat phase, you get to bring all these creatures, but keep yours alive, because they're all fairies. You just say, hey, I choose fairies. Everything else dies. The only way that could backfire is if he has all fairies too, the other guy. Or doesn't have to be a he, But anyways, we also have Dig Through Time, 7 cards. It has Delve. You gotta draw 7 cards. You have to put some back, but you gotta draw 7 cards. We have the Blightwing Bandit. My bad. Flying and Death Touch. First spell on opponent's turn again. Again, you get to look at the top card, and you get to play it. Well, it's exiled, but you get to play it as long as it remains exiled. Nightmare in Making, another board wipe here. So it exiles all the creature cards with the greater than the number of cards in your hand, or the opposite, lesser than the cards in your hand. So if you have a lot of cards, you could do that one, or a few cards. But honestly, in this sense, in this game, you'd probably use the one with the more, especially because you have a lot of 1/1 fairies. But with Tegwyll, you can also make them 2/2s, and then later on 3/3s, 4/4s, and it's because of all those counter kind of guys, right? Oh, here we go. Another board wipe. You may cast Tegwyll Scoring as though it had flash by tapping 3 untapped fairies, and then you get to destroy all creatures and create a 3/1/1 black fairy creature tokens with flying. So yes, your creatures die, but you get more fairies. So basically 3 board wipes, which is awesome. Return target creature, draw a card for attacking creatures, draw 2 cards and untap 2 lands, draw a card. Whenever a creature attacks you, draw a card. Whenever creature you control deals combat damage to a player, my bad. This one is good. This is a really good card. Let's see if I can find anything else that's really good. Destroying non-creature lands. Okay, this one's really good. This one's really good. That one gives you health. Oh, that one's pretty good. 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 And that one's pretty good. I guess I have to look at them all. Okie dokie. All right. So, first off, let's do with Misleading Signpost. When Misleading Signpost enters the battlefield and it has flash as an artifact, you may, during the declare attacker's step, you may reselect which player or permanent attacking creature is attacking. So, and it gives you mana. So you get to choose which players attack which. In a singular player setting, this card is pretty much useless, but in a multiple player setting, it is insane. To being able to have the power to choose who to attack who is just, wow, that's crazy. And because some people don't want to attack, right? But then you force them to attack, and then the attack person has low health or maybe high health, and then you ruin everyone's lives. Anyways, we also have, whenever you cast a fairy or wizard, you copy it. Keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. All right. We also have the Puppeteer Cliche. This one also has Persist. So this one, when it enters the battlefield, you put target creature card from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste at the beginning of your turn or next end step, exile it. But Persist, when this creature dies, which is the Puppeteer Cliche, the person, you get to, well, if it dies, right, you return to the battlefield. So you get this creature twice. When it dies, it comes back, and then so you get 2 creatures from the enemy's team for 2 turns, but they gain haste, which is great. You also have Rankle, the Master of Pranks, and then whenever Rankle, who has flying and haste, deals combat damage to a player, you choose any number of 3 options, which is discards a card, each player, each loses a life and draws a card, or each player sacrifices a creature. Now, this one you're like, oh, that one has a lot of drawbacks, but like, for example, this last one, each player sacrifices a creature. You sacrifice a 1/1 token out of 10 you have, and they have to sacrifice a 9/9 something creature or something like that with trample. Hey, that's pretty good. We also have the Midnight Clock. You add mana, and you can put an hour counter on the Midnight Clock. At the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter, so you can put more than 1 hour counter per turn. And then when the 12th hour counter is put on the Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, and then draw 7 cards. You exile this card. Wow! I've actually never been able to use that card, but it is really good. Okay, Flash and Flying. Other fairies you control get +1/+1. So, Tegwyll +1/+1, and the Sion of Una +1/+1. That's already all your 1/1 fairies have 3/3 once you have this card. Other fairies you control have Shroud as well, which means they can't be targets of spells or abilities. After, we have Nettling Nuisance. Whenever one or more fairies you control deal combat damage to a player, that player creates a 4/2 red pirate with this creature can't block and is goated for the rest of the game. Also, another spell that's not very good for a single player format, but for a multiple player format, that is crazy. 4/2 pirate, and it's goated for the rest of the game. We also have the Fairy Blade Crafter. Whenever one or more fairies you control deal combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Then when the Fairy Blade Crafter dies, each opponent loses X life and you gain life according to the number of counters this person, or according to their power. Sorry. Oh my goodness, where is the freaking glare coming from? Boom. All right. Reflections of Littjara. As Reflections of Littjara enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You get to copy the chosen type. Okay, so I got 3 spells right here, and I want to also, this is the last one. Flying, other blue creatures you control get +1/+1, and other black creatures you control get +1/+1, with periods at the end, which means if you have a card such as Tegwyll, who is black and blue, according to my understanding of this card, he would get a +2/+2 because other blue characters get +1/+1, and then other black characters get +1/+1. So, here's the strategy. Here's the game-changing strat for me in this game. So, you have these 2 cards that copy spells / fairies. So creature types are this creature type, and then this one also fairy or wizard. So this one you choose a creature, fairy, and this one you choose a fairy as well. You're able to copy 2 creatures each time. So if you have those 2 cards on the battlefield, hey, every time you place a fairy, you're copying 2 fairies. It doesn't happen with legendary creatures, sadly, but still, here's where we go into the Sion of Una. This is just a creature, +1/+1 on fairies. So you'll have, if you have these 2 cards on, right? We'll have 3 of these on here. And then we have Glen Elendra Liege, which gives +1 to black and +1/+1 to blue. And we also have Tegwyll, who gives +1/+1. So we have 3 of these guys, and we have 3 of these guys, and we have these creatures, right? And every fairy we place gets as well, tripled. So at the end of maybe 2 or 3 turns, you have about 50 fairies on the battlefield or something. And they all have +1, 2, 3, 4. +4/+4. And depending if they are... Oh, so +3/+3, or if they're both colors, they're +4/+4. So, you can have fairies that were 1/1s that are 5/5s. So, sorry, they would be 4/4s. But then you'd have other creatures that have 5/5s. Just, little baby fairies, that can't do nothing, right? So that is the game-changing strategy in this Precon deck. Just copying all these fairies and having an unbeatable flying army at your every whim. And goading is also a great aspect of that battle, which I have not really been able to go into much in my experience of using this deck. Other cards that I have added in replacement of other such cards have been, I actually think Hull-Breaking Horror is on this deck. These are lands. Let's see, Hull-Breaking Horror. Let's see if he's on here. I just want to see. I did see in other people's things, I think they did put him. Yes, never mind. He is on here. Okay, Hull-Breaking Horror. This is the only non-fairy creature that you have. This spell cannot be countered. It is flash, and whenever you cast a spell, you choose up to 1. Return target spell and return target non-land. You only choose 1 though. He's pretty expensive, but pretty gosh darn good. And he's a 7/8. He's one of your most powerful power toughness kind of cards that you have. So I guess I didn't really add much to this deck, but some things I did add was Bitter Blossom. Every upkeep you get to lose 1 life, and you get to also put a 1/1 black fairy rogue creature token with flying. So every turn you can get these black fairy creature tokens, because most of these cards in this deck have only a one and done kind of deal with these fairies. And so having something that is constantly putting fairies on the battlefield, especially if you're copying fairy spell or creature that we discussed earlier, you're getting lots of fairies all the time. And then we have the Junk Winder. The Junk Winder is an affinity for tokens. So this spell costs 1 less for each to cast for each token you control. So this 7 spell 5/6 card can only cost, well, 2 mana at a certain time when you have 5 tokens on the field. And then let's see here. Whenever a token enters the battlefield, so this is why Bitter Blossom also comes into play. Under your control, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. It is not untapped during its controller's next untap step. So if you have Bitter Blossom and you have the copying spells and you have Junk Winder, then you're able to make it or force the other player to not able to attack ever because all their creatures are tapped. And if you keep getting fairies, forever. Especially if the 2 spell tokening things, because this would go, because it's whenever, this would happen 3 times a turn. And that's if you didn't play other creatures during that time. So, whoa, crazy. So I feel like these add significant enhancements to the deck as well. However, it's great as well. And I'm saying as well a lot. But that is just the Tegwyll Duke of Splendor Precon deck for you. Lots of cool strategies, story, and even improvements you can make based on your own strategies and skills that you have. But that's all I wanted to mention. This is a pretty cool deck. I love the ability to be able to fly above your opponents and just beat them kind of from afar if they can't reach you, and then make it so they can't attack back. So it's pretty gosh darn good. Anyways, that's it. Sorry for the long video, but it was a cool one and we got into some stuff. But yes, have a good one.